Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number LB4322-400-651. This is a 4x4 single acting spring hinge, full mortise, residential weight, lube bearing, steel based, bright chrome plated spring hinge is what this is. So it's a spring hinge. Let's dissect the part number. LB stands for lube bearing. That's a concealed, maintenance-free sort of bearing construction. You'll see it on 3-knuckle hinges from Bommer. The 4322, now that specifically means that you're dealing with a hinge that will have a 5/8 radius on all 4 corners, and that will have the screw holes. And speaking of screw holes, screws are included in a complementary finish, wood and machine screws, in a very specific templated pattern. Not template, but just a specific pattern that matches the template that can be viewed below this video. The dimensional properties of those screw holes, along with the 5/8 radius on all 4 corners, equate to doors and frames made by Permadoor. Okay, so if you have a Permadoor brand, this is likely your hinge. You will, before you order, want to review the template and measure against all your existing holes before you order this, because if your template in the website does not match what your existing conditions are, you'll want to review other hinges. And as a matter of fact, there's a link to another video below that template that will help you identifying an unknown residential spring hinge. The 400 in the part number means that the hinge is 4 inch tall and 4 inch wide. The height is the first dimension on most hinges, but not all. Tells us that it's 4 inch tall and 4 inch wide. Not so much a big difference on a square hinge, but imagine if you had a rectangular hinge like a 5x4.5. It's important to know that the 5 is the height. The first dimension is the height, or it's opposite the way that doors go. Doors are width and then height. The 651 in the part number, that means 2 things. It means it's made of steel, and that the hinge is bright chrome or polished chrome plated. This is a UL listed hinge rated for fire rated applications. Grade 1 is what it's certified. That means it will last 1,000,000 cycles. Non-handed, you can install it either way. Self-lubricating, that's the LB portion of the part number. Easily adjustable spring tension, we'll go over that in a moment. Special template hole pattern, we discussed that. Designed to fit Permadoor, made of steel, 5/8 radius, 96 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness. That's important to know, but you're probably not going to have to encounter that being a concern. You can see from the swag on the hinge leafs there that when they're brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and the frame. Okay. Recommended maximum weight for 2 spring hinges and a standard commercial grade non-spring hinge, although ball bearing, is 85 pounds. If you get over that, up to 110 pounds, they'll want 3 spring hinges. Below that as well is a reference to the tension pin, which is that silver pin that's there, and the tension rod. Those are available separately. Now let's go over usage and guidelines. If your hinge comes in a box, and it likely will, it will have the link, it'll have the information I'm referring to on the back of the box, which is the hinge certifications and hinge selection guide. That basically tells you how many hinges to use based on the width, the size of the door, and the weight of the door. Now, I'm a fan of all spring hinges. It's not for the obvious reason as much as it's for this. My years of experience of installing, selling, troubleshooting, adjusting spring hinges tells me that when you have more spring hinges on the door rather than less, you have a greater opportunity to have the door act more predictably. Now, springs are not a way to control a door naturally. They're just a way to try to get the door closed. Control of a door would be hydraulic control, like a surface closer, an overhead conceal, or maybe a floor closer. But that's control, or pneumatic control as well. Those types of closers allow you to really get your hands on the behavior of the door during the open or during the closing process. Spring hinges don't. The more stored energy in that spring when the door is released, the more it'll close. It's not control. More spring hinges allows you to have the load shared against more springs, meaning that when the door gets open to 90 degrees, you've got that stored energy. You have more stored energy potentially with more spring hinges, but you'll also have more torque available, like a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they can pull a lot of weight. Well, at the crucial last 10 degree of closing, you'll have more residual torque left over, so to speak, because you've got more springs doing the work than less. You have less of a tendency with more spring hinges to set the tension so high that the door has to slam closed and doesn't operate correctly. So more spring hinges allows you also a greater envelope to be able to tailor exactly what's happening. You're going to want to install your spring hinges. I would like to do middle and bottom, and then top would be the last spring hinge that I would use. And if you're only doing 2 spring hinges, and 2 spring hinges, if you've got a 60-pound door, there's no reason to have 3 spring hinges. But if you've got a front door of a 3-flat building, and that the air pressure is going to change season to season. In the winter, all the doors and windows are closed. In the summertime, you might have a window that's always open in the back, or the ambient air pressure is different as the seasons change. You can tailor that spring tension along those hinges so that you can get more predictable behavior out of it. And if you've got a fire-rated door, that door must do 2 things. It must self-close and self-latch. And if it doesn't do either of those, then you don't actually have a fire door. More spring hinges allows you to more predictably latch that door under standard conditions. So more is better than less, although that's only if you're concerned of how many you might actually need. Now, how to set the hinge. This is a tension collar. You'll notice down here there isn't one. When you install the hinge where the tension collar is pointed towards the top of the door, you can do it this way too, but you'll insert, after the door is hung, you'll insert that black rod, and this client's order has 3 spring hinges on it, by the way, so there are 3 of those tension pins. You'll insert the black tension rod into the tension collar and turn it clockwise. And as you do so, you reveal new additional holes. Up to 3 hole maximum is permitted when you're opening the door to 180 degrees. I think you can get to 4 holes if you're only going to 90 degree. I'm looking for that on the information and I don't see it, but that's pretty standard. Door is hung, set your tension, put 1 or 2 holes of tension and test the operation, and then go about tailoring it. I'd work on that middle hinge, I'd work on that bottom hinge is what I would do. I'd let the last hinge kick in if you were doing that as well. Okay. If you're mixing and matching, you're going to have a hinge that is going to be between 123 and 130 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness. That's no problem. That just means that that 4-inch hinge, if you're going to mix and match, that's non-spring, needs to be ball bearing, and what we would call standard weight would be normal for a hinge leaf, when you're dealing with commercial grade hinge thicknesses. This being a residential hinge, you're going to need to use a lightweight hinge as well, because the leaf thickness needs to be compatible with the vertical axis of pivoting of this. A thicker hinge will wreak havoc on the vertical axis of pivoting. Some clients say, hey, do you sell regular non-spring hinges for this Permador? And the answer is we don't, nor do we for any of the other brands of spring hinges that we can sell for. The short answer is just buy an extra spring hinge and don't set the tension. That's the best answer that I'm able to come up with. There is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all the Bommer products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, which is very handy, and then also a link to the manufacturer's full product catalog as it pertains to their hinges and other hardware. If it comes to single-acting and double-acting spring hinges, the name Bommer is synonymous, especially that 3029 series of double-acting spring hinge that you're going to see in restaurants, between the kitchen and the dining area. You'll see them all the time, in residential applications as well, kitchen to dining area. But you might be interested to know that Bommer does other things as well. They have a comprehensive offering of very high-quality, solid brass lavatory hardware. There's also a link to their postal specialties catalog as well. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, and right above it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer LB4322, 400-651 single acting spring hinge, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.